speaking to you. She is Professor Dr. Reena George. Madam is highly qualified. She is PhD in education, MSc in psychology. She has done MPhil also. She is MSc in counseling and psychology. And Madam has has qualified UGC, NET and JRF also. Of course, she is MEd. And Madam has a vast experience of 27 years at B.Ed level and 7 years at MEd level. So she has completed both the B.Ed level and MEd level. And she has a vast experience of guiding the students also for PhD from University of Kerala since 2008. Under her guidance, 7 research scholars have been successfully awarded PhD, and some are working under her still. And Madam has completed both major research projects and minor research projects. She has completed 2 UGC-sponsored major research projects as principal investigator. Madam has more than 25 research publications to her credit, with ISSN and ISBN numbers. And Madam has presented many research papers also at national and state seminars. So actually, she's a person from the field. She's a practitioner. So I think all of us will be able to learn from Madam. So I extend a hearty welcome to Professor Reena George. Sorry, I forgot to tell. At present, Madam is heading the Department of Postgraduate Department of Education, Peet Memorial Training College, Mavelikara. It is at Kollam district in Kerala.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Madam, welcome. Hearty welcome,
Thank
Madam.
you,
Over to George. Yes, Madam, it's over to you.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And, I think I'll share the screen. And please give me the feedback. Okay? Yeah, the screen is visible.
Yes, Madam, it's visible. Participants, please respond to Madam.
Yes, Madam, it is visible.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay,
madam.
okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Visible, Madam.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's visible, Madam. It's no problem.
Namaste, madam.
Yes, thank you. So we'll pass on to the topic, and it is a lengthy one that I've prepared. Some slides of introduction. So we are in the process of implementing or studying about actually the national education policy. We'll start from that point. Okay, actually I'm supposed to speak about differentiated instruction in the first session and problem-based learning or assessment rather in the second session. So we are aware that the NEP is trying to develop well-rounded, competent individuals with all the 21st century skills to be launched into the global society. And we know we had a very rich tradition of the Guru Shishya Parampara or Gurukula Sampradaya, and the education that we had for the past few years were more classroom oriented, and we lost giving individualized instruction and taking into consideration the individual tendencies of the students and catering to the needs of each individual child in a classroom. And actually the NEP is striving to go back to our old golden days of wherein the guru was well aware of what the student needed, what his capacities were, and how he can be guided and brought out into a full-rounded individual. Okay, so we need to reorient our curricular and pedagogies accordingly. So we have been following the traditional system of curriculum planning, lesson planning, pedagogy, etc. Now we'll have to modify a bit according to the need of the time. And NEP aims to overhaul the existing education system through a multi-pronged approach. So it's not a two-pronged or three-pronged, it's a multi-pronged approach, and one of which is developing a pedagogy that makes education more experiential, holistic, integrated, inquiry-driven, discovery-oriented, learner-centered, discussion-based, flexible, and at the same time enjoyable. So I feel that they are aiming at a very differentiated curriculum, differentiated instruction. That is, within the classroom itself, you can cater to the needs of the students according to their learning styles, individual levels of learning, their pace of learning, their likes and dislikes. So it's not a very difficult thing, but we need to change our perspective. For that, I would like to share the approach of NEP 2020, which is learner-centric approach. Teacher plays a pivotal role in its implementation. The policy gives teachers more autonomy in choosing aspects of pedagogy so that they may plan teaching in the manner they find most effective for the students in their classroom. This is what I have been saying. Now, the meaningful exercise of this autonomy and flexibility depends on the teacher's understanding of the different innovative pedagogical approaches and suitable evaluation and modalities of evaluation, different modalities of evaluation. Now, why we need a innovative pedagogical approach and evaluation? So, now we know that the pedagogy is an art of sharing knowledge. In the classroom, we are actually sharing what we know in a very dynamic manner students. And the nature of that sharing varies from teacher to teacher, classroom to classroom, institution, as well as the platform that we are using. Here, the platform is an online platform, and there are so many limitations as well as plus points for this online platform. But depending on the nature of the platform that we use, the classroom, institution, the pedagogy varies. Now, the traditional Indian pedagogy was holistic, which provided comprehensive knowledge. It was value-based and required the development of life skills suited for the learners. Now, diverse pedagogies were used for achieving the core objectives of the entire learning process. Now, that included exposure to life experiences, hands-on learning, value-based learning through stories, narration, problem solving through explorations, role plays, memorization, dissemination through debates and discussions. Now, these are the features of a holistic pedagogy. Pedagogical practices determine the learning experiences arranged for the learners in a holistic pedagogy, thus directly influencing their learning outcome. Now, such a pedagogy or a holistic pedagogy must have increased emphasis on the inclusive approach to communication, discussion, debates, research, and cross-disciplinary as well as interdisciplinary thinking opportunities. Teachers should be provided with requisite training on pedagogical approaches for capacity building to achieve the desired learning outcome for students. So for this particular kind of new pedagogy, we have to be trained, or to a certain extent, it is we who should take the initiative and train ourselves. Now, training on pedagogy must focus on addressing the different learning needs of students within classroom and institution, especially the needs of differently able students. Then differences in learning styles, the visual, auditory, tactile, kinesthetic learning styles come into play. Diversity of the background of students in terms of the discipline of study, the social, economic, cultural, and educational background. In a classroom, the diversity is so varied that often the teacher finds it very difficult to manage even the learning styles of students. And over and above that, we have students now who may be borderline, who may be having traits of ADHD, who may be having some traits of autistic tendencies, or somewhere they may be somewhere in the autistic spectrum. So we have to include all these students into our classroom, and it is the teacher who must make adjustments on their part to include all these students into the classroom. So our pedagogy should be so flexible or holistic for approaching or catering to the needs of all these students. Now, approaching innovative pedagogy. So, I would like to bring the 4 categories of pedagogical approaches. That is, we are familiar with behaviorism. Okay. So that is our traditional teaching style. I'll just brief that in 4 different slides. So it is a traditional teaching style. It is teacher oriented. Teacher is the sole authority to lead the lesson and the knowledge being delivered in the curriculum, where each subject is taught discretely. That means it is topic based. Our classes are topic based. Now, while we are thinking about these isms or these philosophy of classroom teaching or pedagogy, we may reflect upon inwardly, think about how our classrooms are. As in when I am speaking about this, each one of you may think about our classroom or imagine what is happening in our classroom and see whether it is behaviorism or constructivism or social constructivism or whatever philosophy that we are following, and try to view the whole thing from that point of view. Okay. So in behaviorism, we use direct instruction and often lecture-based instruction. We use a mixture of lecturing, modeling, demonstration, and encourage a lot of rote learning and oral repetition. Even while practice teaching, we can find students trying to repeat what the teacher says. And knowing or unknowingly, our students also are encouraging that oral repetition. Even though often they say, no, don't repeat, I'll ask you, you may say, one person will have to say the answer like that. But there is an innate tendency in the part of the teacher as well as in the part of the learners for this oral repetition. So that indicates that our classrooms are still behavioristic. So the learning activities are visible and very structured and are led by the teacher. Often we see in the lesson plan, the activities are very carefully written down there. Okay, so this is an indication that our class is behavioristic. During the course of a lesson, a student demonstrates one's learning and the center of activity shifts the students from the teacher. Of course, when there is some activity, the student becomes the center of the whole task, and immediately after that, the shift again goes back to the teacher. Okay, so that is the typical nature of a behavioristic classroom. Now we'll see constructivism. It's a progressive teaching style, no doubt about that. Learning happens through experiences and reflection. So reflection is an indispensable part of constructivism. And constructivist pedagogy is an invisible pedagogy as it puts the child in the center of the learning. Without knowing the child or without realizing the fact that the child becomes, is a student or a learner, he automatically becomes the center of the whole learning process, and teacher becomes a facilitator. So this constructivist approaches incorporates project work and inquiry-based learning. Unfortunately, the project work that we give now is all teacher-directed. Teacher will be choosing the project. Teacher will be assigning the objectives of the project and how that should be executed. And finally, even the conclusion part will also be done by the teacher. So even though we say project work is part of constructivism, it is teacher dominated when it comes to the practical application of that or implementation of project work. So in essence, even though we have practicum, project works, then minor research projects as part of our B.Ed curriculum or whatever in school, Ultimately, these are all guided by the principles of behaviorism. It is becoming teacher dominated. Now, in constructivism, it includes individualization and leads to slower pace outcomes with the support of expert and less teacher talk. And there is a lot of scope for being outdoors and being engaged with nature. So that is constructivism. I just wanted to bring into the scene these four philosophies. Next is social constructivism. We know Vygotsky, Piaget, Brunner, they were all proponents of social constructivism, and it is a blend of two priorities, teacher guided and student centered. Okay, they expect an adult to be around the student to scaffold their whole learning process. Teacher uses group work elements, having smaller group sizes and limited topics for choices. Teacher uses modeling, questioning, and a mixture of individual, pair, and whole class instruction. Now I would like to present the fourth one, which is a liberationism. Okay, now our whole NEP is trying to be based on the liberationist approach. It involves democracy in the classroom as the student's voice is placed at the center. The class discovers the subjects together and the teacher plays the role of a learner. Here, not only in constructivism, teacher was a facilitator. Here, the teacher is learning along with the students. Teacher may use examples and provide space and opportunity for the students to learn independently. Students play the role of the teacher and decide about the topic of the lesson and showcases their learning through performance, speech, or dance, or any other involvement that the students are comfortable with in a classroom. And that is permitted because the whole environment is democratic. And this is what we need because democracy, we learn democracy in our classrooms, civics in our playground. Only if the classroom environment is democratic, the citizens will grow out strong to support the nation. Okay. So the first the classroom climate should shift from autocratic to democratic. And it is this liberationism which facilitates that. Now, there are some very powerful models of teaching that facilitates liberationism. That is we are familiar with concept attainment model, inductive thinking model, role play, assertive training model, inquiry training model, jurisprudential model, synectics, and along with that comes differentiated instruction model. We are familiar with all the other models because somewhere in the Dept pedagogy, we are practicing some of these models and learning the theory of certain other models. And differentiated instruction model, actually differentiated instruction model and problem-based assessment model or problem-based learning, they were part of the medical education or special education, not much practiced in the normal schools. Okay. Now, each of these models have direct instructional as well as nurturing effects. We know the models are based on, they have their own principles of reaction. They have their own support system. Each model will be having a support system. Then each model will be having a set of instructional effects and a set of nurturing effects. Instructional effects are those that we are trying to attain within the classroom as a result of teaching or instructing to that particular model. And the nurturing effects are those effects that we get in the long run. So likewise, the differentiated instruction model has also got certain instructional effects as well as nurturing effects. Okay, like concept formation, logical reasoning, synectics is developing creativity, jurisprudential model develops actually the qualities of a good citizen or democracy is being taught through that. Now, why should we differentiate instruction? Now we must have we must be logically satisfied with the reasons why. So we are comfortable with this system of education. Then why should we differentiate instruction? Parents are comfortable, students are comfortable with the marks. Everybody is happy. So why should we differentiate? So we have been, just look at our classrooms and just look at the presence. We first of all assign an uniform. We make the students uh, wear their hair in a particular manner, or shoes, socks, all these things, so that they all look alike. And we know as parents, our children are not alike. Even the twins are so different. So no two children are alike. No two children learn in the identical way. So we are so we find it so difficult to manage two children in our home or three children. Okay, so how can a teacher expect 55 or 45 students in a classroom to be identical, to respond in the same way, okay, to have the same level of span of attention? It is impossible. And there comes the problem of discipline. And we start disciplining them. Okay, so the whole focus of the teacher is now being shifted from sharing the knowledge through social negotiation to disciplining the class. Teacher is more bothered, majority of their time is being spent on disciplining the class. Okay. So an enriched environment for one student is not necessarily enriched for another. So you, in a heterogeneous classroom, you are finding it difficult to give a higher order thinking assignment, because that may be enriching for one student, but that need not be enriching for another student. So we are really finding it difficult to vary the activities that we provide in our classroom also. And we know today's classrooms are filled with diversity. They are coming from different backgrounds, maybe different levels of understanding English also. One classroom can have students with exceptionalities, students of different ethnicities, students from different socioeconomic status, different culture, different academic readiness, students whose first language is not English. We face that is the biggest problem in us. Even postgraduate students are asking whether they can write their English examination in Malayalam. In University of Kerala, examination have to be, answers have to be written in English only. And even postgraduate students are demanding that they want to write the examination in Malayalam or their regional language. So this is the problem, first problem that we face in our classroom. Okay, so the interest of the students are very varied. So this, of course, the natural differences are not included here, like gender differences, learning, thinking, learning style, intelligence, their interest, attitude, aptitude. These are all differences that are existing in the classroom. Over and above that, they have certain other exceptionalities. And teachers are left with the challenge to create a curriculum that is flexible and dynamic to meet the students' requirement. It is in this context that we think of differentiation. Now, what is differentiation? Actually, the concept of differentiation was proposed by Tomlinson way back in 1995. Then he updated that and defined it as responsive teaching rather than one-size-fits-all teaching. That is in 2005. Okay. Here, the teachers proactively plan varied approaches to what the students need to learn, how they will learn it, or how they will show what they have learned. See, learning is one aspect, and demonstrating what I have learned is another aspect. And we need to evaluate the student in some way or the other. And we will be able to evaluate the student or assess the students' depth of knowledge only on the basis of what they are demonstrating or what they are doing. Maybe they say that in a viva, or maybe they write it in their examination, or maybe they demonstrate in their laboratory, or maybe they are, or maybe there are certain skills that they'll have to demonstrate in certain situations that we create for them. So differentiation engages students more deeply in their learning and provides for constant growth and development and provides for a stimulating and exciting classroom. This is what Tomlinson has envisaged. Now I'll pass on to the rationale of differentiated instruction. is designed to meet the diverse needs of the classroom. It helps to bridge the gaps in learning and life experiences by attending to each student as an individual. And of course, it is flexible in its approach to teaching, where the teacher plans and carries out various approaches to content, process, and product. See, we are now passing on to the dynamics of differentiated instruction. So these are the terms. The teacher can vary the content, process, and product in anticipation of and in response to the student differences with respect to readiness, interest, and learning needs. So that is what we are trying to focus on the coming slides. See, all students we know are of different ability levels and they can be challenged. The students are actually challenged when you present them with a problem. And normally in a classroom, the students doesn't have any problem. They will have to come. Only problem is the homework that we have given them or the work that we have asked them to do. Okay, they will be coming very comfortably for the next class. They will be listening to what the teacher says, write down what the teacher gives, and do the assignments that the teacher asks them to do. So on the part of the student, they just have to learn or memorize what the teacher has given. Okay. But in differentiated instruction, here the student is now becoming the focus. Everything is being centered around each student, what they know, what they want to know, what they can do, what they are expected to do. Now, here when we shift from the traditional classroom or the behaviorist classroom to the liberationist or the differentiated instruction model, we are not watering down the curriculum. Okay, whatever they will have to learn will have to be learned by them only. Now, partly that is the responsibility of the teacher to teach. Here, we are shifting from teaching on the part of the teacher to learning on part of the student. So that is what I have said in this slide. Differentiating instruction means creating multiple paths so that students of different abilities, interests, or learning needs experience equally appropriate ways to absorb, use, develop, and present concepts as a part of their daily learning process. So this is the visual model of differentiation. You can see the teachers can differentiate by content, process, and product. According, so when you are differentiating the content, you can differentiate the content with respect to the readiness of the learner. On the right side, we have readiness, interest, and learning style. Each content you are varying according to the readiness of each learner. So if there are 10 learners in your class, the same content is now being varied according to the readiness. One may be very ready to learn that. Some will have to be motivated. Some will have to be forced. According to the level of their readiness, you are varying the content. Okay, so second is the process. One may be very comfortable with what the teacher say or the auditory method. Some will need visual explanations. Some will have to do that. Okay. So for each the interest of the learner, you are varying the process. And according to the way in which they have handled their content, you will have to vary the product also. Okay. Some will come up with a project. Some will come up with a model of what they have learned. Some will come up with a write-up. Okay. And for some, you can have a discussion with them. So depending on the characteristic feature of your children or students, a teacher can differentiate by content, process, and product, and according to the student's readiness, interest, and learning style. So that is explained in this slide. I think it is. I can skip off that slide, I think. Okay. When you get the PowerPoint material, you can read it. I've said the same thing. I've given a detailed explanation in the PowerPoint so that you can work on that in your private learning space. So this is a differentiation can occur in content, process, product, you may be having an examination after that, so you need some theory, and I have added that. So curriculum is no longer defined in terms of what a teacher will teach, but what a student will be able to demonstrate. Okay, it is not what we teach, but what they do. Now we'll see how we can differentiate the content. Uh, Now, content is nothing but the knowledge, skills, and attitude we want the students to learn. Okay. And differentiating content requires that the students are pre-tested. Otherwise, we will not be able to understand what a student really wants. Often in a classroom, we don't do this pre-testing. In differentiated instruction, pre-testing is very important. Only if we pre-test, we will be able to identify the students who do not require direct instruction. Some students don't require direct instruction in the classroom. They are so motivated, self-motivated, that they learn it on their own. And allowing that particular student to proceed in that pace is allowed in differentiated instruction. See, one feature of differentiated instruction is from there is an universal level, what all students should do. And there is a second stage where some students will do certain things. And there not all the students are expected to do that task. And there is a third stage where only very few students will be uh, allowed or made to do certain tasks. So the class is proceeding in a three-tiered fashion. Okay, and when we allow a student who is self-motivated and who is already in an upper strata of learning, level of learning, that is acceleration. Okay, now students demonstrating understanding of the concept who has already learned the concept can skip instruction step and proceed to apply the concepts to the task of solving a problem. This is called compacting the curriculum. So you are identifying certain students and you know that they know the matter and they can be allowed to go in a faster pace or to the next stage, that is compacting the curriculum, and that we are familiar with that term acceleration. So that is another way to differentiate the content. So it simply permits the student to proceed according to the rate of progress. We had this acceleration way back when we were when our generation was in school. Okay, in our primary classes, we could skip one class, and we were allowed from first standard. We were allowed to go to the third standard. We were allowed to write the examination of the second standard, and if the student knows that or passes in that, he could be promoted to directly to third standard. And after I think it was during 1970s that acceleration was stopped, and every student will have to sit in that particular class, learn whether they know it or not, and then go to the next class. Okay. The age of entry was made 5 years, and later it was 6 years to first standard, and the age of entry to SSLC was fixed for a particular age. So acceleration was stopped. In American education, acceleration is still there. Now differentiating the process. So we saw differentiating the content. Differentiating the process involves varying learning activities or strategies to provide appropriate methods for students to explore the concepts. So here the methods are being differentiated. Okay, there the content is differentiated. Everybody need not learn everything. Here, the students are allowed to follow different methods for learning. Okay. For example, you can make use of graphic organizers, maps, diagrams, or charts to display the comprehension of concepts covered. Or for some set of students. For some others, that may be some other kind of instructional module. So varying the complexity of a graphic organizer can very effectively facilitate different levels of cognitive program. You need not teach all the students using graphic organizer. That's an example. You can make use of different processes or activities in the classroom. Another method of differentiation is differentiating the product. So differentiating the product means varying the complexity of the product that students create to demonstrate mastery of the concepts. See, here, all the students are required to write the same examination based on the same question paper. You're giving the same question paper to all the students, and they're writing the same examination. Okay, so by differentiating the product, you're actually allowing, it is actually a jury system kind of. You're actually allowing the students to take different kinds of examination to demonstrate the mastery of their concepts. Some who are doing well, good in doing things, can show their skill or show their learning by doing that. Some may be very good at speaking, verbal skills. Okay, so they will be able to verbalize what they have learned. Okay, now our classroom is lacking that particular kind of varied uh, product demonstration. Okay. We are all making the students do the same thing. They will be sitting in a classroom, writing the examination for 3 hours, and then we assign marks for the answer paper that they have given us, whether they are able to do that or not. Okay, so a student who is dyslexic finds it very difficult. A student who is having ADHD finds it very, very difficult to sit for 3 hours in a particular place. So they are actually not benefiting from our curriculum. Even though they are having the skills for learning, just because the dissemination of the product is not comfortable for them, they are not comfortable with the system of education that we are having. And they just followed. And even though we say talk about inclusive education, we are not making any alterations in the method of examination to include our differently able students. In differentiated instruction, we can very easily include the differently able students also, along with our normal students. Now, differentiating according to the learning needs. This is what I just now said. So, the learning tasks should be varied according to the learning needs of the students. See, this doesn't mean that if there are 35 students, you'll have to give 35 different options. No. So you can give 3, 4, 5 options, and you can group students under these 3 or 5 options. It is very difficult for the teacher to give option for each and every student. So you can give options. We can have options for 4 or 5 options depending on the content that we have to teach, and then assign groups, small groups of 4 or 5 students under these different options. And students with specific needs or weaknesses should be presented with learning activities that offer opportunities for developing need-based skills. Okay, as well as opportunities to display their individual strengths. Okay, they are having some weaknesses. They may not be able to say certain things. Some may not be able to calculate. Some may not be able to multiply. Okay, make mental multiplication or mental arithmetic. So activities that are varied to include the specific needs as well as weaknesses or even individual strengths should be included, should be planned by the teacher. Now here I am sharing the certain research works by which you can manipulate the classroom environment. One is the creative learning style model, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, tactile learning style model by Done and Done. That is a very comfortable, very practical model wherein you can incorporate the individual learning styles. Some students need to see what is being told by the teacher. Some students are comfortable with what the teacher says. They take in auditively. Okay, they are comfortable with listening to the teacher. Some need to visualize. So if you are teaching about solar system, some children need to visualize what a solar system is. Otherwise, the student will think that the solar system is in a line, in a plane. Usually, that is the picture we have in a textbook. Okay, sun is at the center, and then there is a ring around that, and We have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, all in concentric circles. And the solar system is not like that. Okay, some are comfortable, they can visualize, but certain students must be shown the video or a live model of that. Okay, we can develop a model of a solar system where the orbitals are tilted, it is not perfectly round, and planets are of different shapes, sizes. They are having satellites around that, so they will have to visualize that. So taking into, some students need to do that, or the kinesthetic or tactile learning style students will have to have hands-on experience. Then we have the Renzulli learning system, where we can vary the teaching strategies, wherein you give the personalized learning environment. Then we are familiar with the Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence, where we take into account the different intelligences, verbal, linguistic, auditory, intrapersonal, interpersonal. Likewise, we have the 9 different intelligences. Okay. So a student who is not having a naturalistic intelligence will definitely find it difficult to learn science. Making that student learn biology, botany, physics, chemistry will be very difficult. Some may be finding it very difficult to learn mathematics because they lack arithmetic intelligence or mathematical intelligence. Some may be finding it very difficult to share and work in a group because they lack intrapersonal intelligence. So we have to take into consideration the typical. So these are all these things form part of the pre-testing in differentiated instruction. Now there are certain limitations for differentiated instruction. As we know, many classrooms offer very limited opportunities to change the lighting or sound levels. You go and ask the headmaster or the manager to change the lighting or even change the seating arrangement, it would be very difficult. So we have to take into consideration the infrastructure also. So eliminating visual distractors. Outside the classroom, there may be some posters of a film or some advertisements, some lighting going on, or some sound, or from the nearby club, there may be some songs going on. So all these things will be affecting the classroom in a differentiated instruction. Okay, so that will be affecting the so-called discipline of our classroom. And varying teaching strategies again will give occasion for the students to be in our language more unruly. Okay, some may be naturally inclined to take advantage of the freedom that they get in a differentiated classroom. So these are some limitations of the differentiated classroom that we can be aware of. So infrastructure facilities, the discipline of the classroom, the innate nature of the students to take advantage of the freedom that they are getting in the classroom. So that is the limitation. Okay. Now we'll see what are the elements of a differentiated instruction model. Now I'm passing on to the differentiated instruction model. One is the curriculum is of very high quality. The curriculum should be of very high quality. Okay, only then we can vary the activities according to the level of interest of the students. Then the second thing that we need is continual assessment. So even though we speak about continuous comprehensive assessment, we must reflect whether in essence we are doing continual assessment. Again, we have subsidized, or we have brought down the concept of continual assessment to test papers. Only thing is that before we used to conduct examination for 100 marks. Now we are conducting examination for 50 marks or 25 marks or 10 or 15 marks. Okay. So then respectful tasks. So these are certain terminology associated with differentiated instruction model. Respectful tasks, building community, Now I'll go to each of these terminology or terms. So high quality curriculum means planning with the end in mind. See, curriculum, the quality of the curriculum is not determined by how much content you have put into that. Okay. It is how well you are bringing the students through the curriculum out of it. Should always be in our mind. The products coming out of the curriculum, okay, should have certain qualities that will reflect the content that you have given in the curriculum. Okay, that is the quality of the curriculum. Now it begins with clearly defining where we want students to go before thinking about how we want them to get there. So in our high quality curriculum, we decide or think about or discuss about where our students should go. Okay. And then we think about how we are going to take them there and what they are going to get it from there. Okay. So students engaging in exploring important ideas and challenges, students and to develop the skills and attitudes they need to do. So know, understand, do. These are the three things that we emphasize in it. That is the Bloom's taxonomy, nothing but knowledge, understanding, and application or skill. Okay. Now it's a continual assessment. And assessment is the element that steers instruction in a differentiated classroom. So in a differentiated classroom, assessment is part of the instruction. Without assessment, you just cannot go forward with differentiated classroom in an instruction. So it starts with pre-assessment. Okay. At the start of a unit, using ungraded tests or surveys, we pre-assess the students. It is not graded. Okay. We are not going to give any marks for that. Okay. That is what we conventionally call the diagnostic test. In a diagnostic test, we are actually diagnosing the difficulties. We are assessing the level of the students, existing level of the students, or that is the entry point. And during the unit, as they pass through the unit, they are being continuously assessed whether they are progressing towards the learning and their KUDs, so that is knowledge of what they understand and what they do, guide the teacher in planning the next instructional step in the classroom. So during the unit also they are being assessed because what they know, what they have understood and what they are doing will guide the teacher in planning the next instructional step. Okay. Then we have the formative assessment in the form of exit cards, questions for the day, journal prompts, observation, one-on-one conversation. After the class, we can call each student and converse with them, talk to them, what they have learned, what they want to know more about the topic, and what would have they expected from the teacher and what they did not get from the teacher. All these things can be made clear in a conversation with the student. Actually, if we start talking to the students, we can understand one thing that they really love talking to the teacher. And it is we who dodge away from the students. We can give them assignments, we give them homeworks, we just correct the homework, and we simply dodge away from the one-to-one personal relationship with the student. So in a differentiated instruction model, the teacher is having one-to-one relationship with each student. Actually, we have this kind of relationship in our research guidance. And often I have felt that as a teacher, this should be the model that we should follow in our primary classrooms also. So when a research student comes, I spend my time exclusively with that student. We'll be conversing, we'll be discussing on the topic, I'll be correcting all the things in front of the student. So the research scholar is also convinced of what the mistakes that they have made and how they made that mistake, how that should be corrected, what modification should be made on their part. Okay, so we have to extend this kind of one-to-one relationship with each and every student in a classroom instead of standing in front of the students and delivering a lecture. Okay. So we have to alter our classroom so that the teacher is now available for all the students when they are doing doing some work that is differentiated according to content, process, or their interest or the environment of the classroom. Now, what is respectful task? See, students come to our classroom seeking affirmation, contribution, challenge, power, and purpose. And the respectful tasks are nothing but they are responsive to these needs. It's very simple. You simply respect your students. Okay, they are coming to us for, see, they are coming to us, they share something with us, they share their achievements, they share their doubts, they share their apprehensions, they share their humiliations. Okay, so we are respecting their feelings, their emotions, the challenges that they are experiencing in the learning process. And in any classroom, it is critically important that the task we ask students to do is respectful, that it is challenging, interesting, and worth doing. Respectful means it is challenging. Okay, it is interesting and it's worth doing. Students should feel that they are valued. Okay, the task may be adjusted for different readiness levels. Don't give a very difficult task for a student who is having lesser quality or lesser ability or lesser skill. Okay. So when you are assigning the same task to all the students, a student who is in the upper level of the class with respect to skills, with respect to learning skills, with respect to knowledge base, it may be very enriching for them, but it will be very difficult for a student who is below average. So with respect to a below average student, the task that you're giving is not respectful because that is challenging their very personality, their very preferences, their very likes, their very abilities. So when we are preparing tasks, see that it is according to the level of the interest and the difficulty level of the students. Okay. So if some students look like they are doing a task that is challenging, engaging, and thought-provoking to them, while other students work filling in a simplistic worksheet, okay, see, you have given a very difficult task to some students, and you are giving a worksheet for another one, and it's very simple, yes or no. You will have to take yes or no. Again, the students will compare and see why am I doing this? They are doing a very meaningful task, and see here I am sitting and filling this forms. So there also we will have to apply our discretion while designing the task. This is what respectful task means in differentiated instruction. We will be coming across these terms in differentiated instruction. Then you build a community. Building community is another essential requirement of a differentiated classroom. So in a differentiated classroom, the teacher focuses on building a learning community where students feel safe, accepted, and supported. Okay. Now, sometimes when we group the students, we come across rivalry, jealousy. They will not share the materials that the teacher has given. These are all practical difficulties when you form classroom groups. Okay, there will be lot of underground problems going on in the group. The teacher must be aware of all those things. So when you build a learning community, each and every student should feel that they are safe. Sometimes if the teacher is a person who listens to the listens to certain students who will be coming and complaining about other students or gossiping. If the teacher is engaging in gossip with one of the students in a group, then definitely the other students will start feeling unsafe. Okay, they don't feel supported. So we must learn to limit ourselves or control the students with respect to the teacher-student interaction. What to say, what not to say, what are the conversations that we should engage in. Okay, so that is dependent on the personality of the teacher as well as the personality that we are trying to mold in our students also. So in a community where the students are treated with respect and helps each other to be productive, and share the other person's successes, we can call that a respectful community. In a differentiated classroom, students understand what differentiation is all about, and everyone feels that they play an important role in the community. Okay, students have a voice in the community, how the community works, take responsibility for identifying and solving the problems in the classroom. It is not the teacher's sole responsibility of managing the community. Here, the students are working on the community and they decide how, suppose if they feel that they have finished the work or they need more additional support, they will be working on the phase of the person who needs much support. Okay, so if one student is slow, definitely the other students in the group will slow down their pace, help the student come up along with them. This is how we build a learning community in a differentiated instruction classroom. And it is the teacher who should monitor how the community progresses. And the next one is flexible grouping. In an effectively differentiated classroom, it is characterized by flexible grouping, which means that students work in a variety of arrangements. Of course, the group will be small and students with similar readiness, interest, or learning profile will be grouped together. Okay. And this group is not rigid. Once their level of readiness or interest is shifted or changed or varies, automatically the group will fall apart and they will form other groups. Okay. So a group of 5 students are progressing with one task and they notice that one student is not interested in that particular thing or they are not ready for doing that particular thing or their style of functioning is different and there is another student with the same level of functioning and there is again another student in the third group with the same level of functioning. They are put together temporarily for completing that particular task. Okay. So that they will be taking help from the students who are progressing as well as they are now working with the students of their own pace and then doing the tasks. And after completing this task, they are free to go back to their original groups. So it is a flexible grouping with partner of similar readiness, interest or learning profile, with a partner of different readiness, interest or learning profile. They can work individually or they can even work as a whole class. So the grouping is flexible. At any point of time, you can break away from a group, join with another group, or you can break away from all the groups, work individually, or you can work with a teacher, or the whole class can come together and work collaboratively. So group assignments may be selected by the teacher, by the student, randomly. So in this way, the students have the opportunity to work with a variety of students on a frequent basis. Okay, they are not working with the same 5 students throughout the year. So they are working, so they learn the qualities of cooperation, sharing, intrapersonal intelligence. All these things are working at the same time. So a lot of qualities can also be developed, which enable them to function in a society. And we are actually grooming our students to be global citizens. And only if these qualities are being practiced in the classroom, they will be able to go out into the wider world and associate them with many different kinds of people and live comfortably with them or work in a workspace very comfortably with them. We find a lot of problems at workspace because they are not, only because they are not able to adjust or share or to be more precise, empathetic. So in a flexible grouping, the biggest quality that we are going to develop in students is empathy. Okay, and that is one of the important life skills. Now, teaching up. So this is another terminology that we have to become familiar in differentiated instruction. Teaching up means raising the ceiling for all students. Okay. See, knowingly or unknowingly, in a traditional behaviorist classroom, it's the ceiling. This is what you are expected to know. There you have the objective. The teacher will be having an objective. we have the instructional objective, we have the specific objectives, and that is the ceiling for all the students. Okay, and see, if you go to the lesson plans of our students, we can find that it is so very shallow. Just defining a particular term, you will teach them to define what is work or power or energy or maybe voltage or something like that. Or they will learn to draw the cell in a biology classroom. So the level is sealed by the teacher. In a differentiated classroom, all students would be working at a level of complexity that is just above their individual comfort levels. So we all have our comfort levels. In a differentiated classroom, we are actually pushing the students out of their comfort levels, okay, out of their comfort zone. We just cannot sit passive as a passive learner and listen to what the teacher is saying or observe what the teacher is writing in the blackboard, and they simply note it down in their book and do the homework, come back the next day. They are so comfortable. In a differentiated classroom, they are just not comfortable. We just push them beyond their comfort level. They will have to do. The teacher will be providing instructional scaffolding. Okay, that's all the support needed. Okay. So that is what we understood in Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. What the student actually has attained, their actual development, then we have their potential development, and in between we have the zone of proximal development. Actually, they are in the level of actual development, that is their comfort zone. And level of potential development is the raised ceiling that we have placed. Okay, that is, and through the zone of proximal development, you are actually pushing the student up to the through the zone of proximal development up to the ceiling that we have placed for them. This is teaching up. Okay, it is nothing but Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. Now, one tip for doing this is the teacher must plan the most complex learning activity first. Okay, for with respect to teaching a particular content, what we have to do, the homework for the teacher is what will be the most complex learning activity for the student. And from there, we will have to go down. Once you fix that challenging task for the most advanced learner in your classroom, you will be able to identify the tasks that can be given to students at a lower readiness level. So this is the ceiling, this is teaching up. Normally we teach down at a particular level, and the students just don't go beyond that level. Okay, so this teaching up is another terminology or feature of differentiated instruction. Now I'll discuss some for differentiating instruction. Now we'll just recall what we have said. All differentiation of learning begins with student assessment. It is necessary to clarify the concept of fairness. The differentiation begins with the content, process of product, and according to the readiness level of the learner, and how each learner learns, their learning style, and the environment of the classroom. Okay, so these are the things that we have to consider when we plan for differentiated instruction. And the first one is assessment. Okay, how are you going to assess the readiness or ability? Normally, in a lesson plan, we bring in some introductory talks, or we may bring in some story or chart, or we may ask them to recall what they did. What did you have for your breakfast? Are you comfortable? How did you travel? How was your travel? All these things. And then we go to the cliche question. Are you all this class? Now we'll start the class. This is what we are going to learn. Okay, this is how we assess the readiness in our classroom. Okay, we have to shift from there. And a teacher must have a profile of the learning readiness of each and every student in a classroom. Okay, the teacher must know one by name of one particular student. For example, of Suresh. Teacher must know the reading readiness of Suresh. Teacher must know the reading readiness of Geeta. Teacher must know the reading readiness of Usha, like that. For each and every student, the teacher must be ready with the assessment of their readiness. It may be reading readiness, it may be the readiness for doing some task or activity. You are preparing some demonstration using some wires or potentiometer or electricity or something. You must know whether they have skill for doing that, or it may be soldering, whether they have the skill for soldering, whether they have the adequate skills for conducting a demonstration in a chemistry laboratory, whether they're able to read English textbook. So that is what I have given as an example. A student whose reading level is below grade level will benefit by reading with a friend or listening to pre-recorded stories, stories or instructions, so that they receive information verbally. So you can pair two students. One may be very good at reading. The other will be a bit slow in reading or a bit backward in reading. You can pair them together. Some may be very good in English pronunciation. Some may be very good in understanding the meaning of English words. So the person who is having good vocabulary will help the other person with respect to understanding the new words. Okay. So this is how, for that the teacher needs to know the assessment of readiness or assessment of ability of the student. Next is adjusting questions. Now we have the Bloom's taxonomy. You can display the Bloom's taxonomy in the wall, where the knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation, all things are displayed there. The students know what they are supposed to answer. Okay. Usually, they ask a question generally, and the students are picked up at random. Okay. So some may be very good at describing a thing. Even questioning the classroom should be according to their level of readiness. Some may be good at delivering the base information. Some may be very good. Some may be very good at describing certain things. Some may be very good at performing, okay, or even grouping, or doing something, or come up with a diagram or a labeled diagram. So the teacher will have to adjust the question in such a way that the most appropriate person comes up with the answer. And the questions can be graded according to that. That is something that we do in a lesson planning. So we prepare questions according to the knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, or evaluation levels. We have different questions of different difficulty level. Only thing is that we'll have to identify the active person for asking these questions. Here we ask the same question to all the students. In a differentiated classroom, you'll have to, you can vary the question according to the level of the student. Or I think it's time for break. It's 3:15, 2 more minutes. Now the next thing is compacting curriculum. Compacting curriculum means assessing a student's knowledge, skills, and attitude, and providing alternative activities for students who have already mastered the curriculum. Now this is what I told in the beginning, that is acceleration. Now they have used a new word, compacting curriculum. You assess a student, their knowledge and skills, and even attitude. And if you find that they have already mastered the curriculum, there is no point in keeping the student there. You can allow the student to go forward. So next thing is tiered assessments. Varied levels of assessments. So tiered activities are series of related tasks of varying complexity. So for different levels of students, tiers of assessment. Okay. So one level is following one particular kind of assessment technique. The other tier or other level is facing a different kind of assessment. We will not assess the students using the same tool. Okay. Next is acceleration or deceleration. These are strategies that we use in differentiated instruction. Acceleration and deceleration. We are familiar with the terms accelerating or decelerating according to the pace of the student. Sometimes the student wants to go forward faster. Okay, allow them to go fast. Okay, that is what we do in research also. One student maybe, we will not pull back a student who is doing very fast according to their pace. They will do their work fast. They will submit their thesis. They go about in their pace. Some may take 13, 14, 15, 16 years. Some will do the work within 3 years, get the degree in the third year or maybe the fourth year. Okay. So it is exactly the same thing. So you're accelerating. Only thing is that they will have to confine themselves within that one academic year. And flexible grouping, we have discussed flexible grouping somewhere earlier. Peer teaching, I talked about peer teaching when we talked about grouping also. So there will always be, I have given it in inverted quotation, there will always be a resident expert in our classroom. So sometimes the teacher will be comfortable with instructing or giving some extra instruction to one particular student who is capable of absorbing that. Okay. And it is this person who goes into the classroom and disseminate the information or the tricks that they have learned from the teacher. And this person acts as a resident. Usually they will be over smart also. So they will act as a resident expert. So you can make use of a student occasionally for meeting these personal needs of the students. Some students will be a bit shy to come up with a differentiated instruction. Okay, they will be always behind somebody. So you can reach to those students using a peer. Then preparing learning profiles and learning styles. The teacher definitely the teacher will have to prepare a learning profile. And tasks may be assigned according to the learning profile or learning style of the students. Okay, so some may be having a preferred environment. So some may need a very quiet space, low lighting, formal or casual seating, like that. Some may have a varied learning modality. Some would like auditory methods. Some others may prefer visual style. My first PhD thesis, the thesis that I guided for my first PhD was on learning styles. Okay, and developing instructional packages according to learning styles. The packages were for biology. So developing instructional packages in biology according to the learning style. And one thing that I observed, statistics spoke about that in a classroom, the majority of the students are auditory. And we could find a certain percentage of visual learners and tactile learners were there, but less than 2% were kinesthetic learners. So we couldn't conduct an experimental study on kinesthetic learners because the number of students in a classroom was very less because we could not apply a statistics on that. Okay, when we conduct an experimental study, we need a certain number, at least about 30 or like that. It was only 2 students in a classroom with kinesthetic learning style. The majority were auditory because they are comfortable with auditory style of learning. Okay, so we in the experimental part of the study, in ANOVA, we used only 3 groups: visual, auditory, and tactile. We couldn't find much kinesthetic learners. So it is important that we understand the learning profile of the student. Then student interest, you can brainstorm and find out the student interest. Then learning buddies, reading buddies is what I have said earlier. You can pair 2 students. One person is paired with a friend who is much fluent in the language and have better comprehension in the language. And then independent study projects, you can assign independent study projects and modify the topic accordingly. Okay. So these are all topics related to concepts related to differentiated instruction. Buddy study, it is 2 or 3 students are allowed to work together on a project. Okay. Actually, in one way or the other, we are practicing all these things. They have given us some terminologies, that's all. Learning contracts. Okay, this is something that we can do with our students. A teacher can enter into a contract, that is a written agreement between the teacher and the student. and the student will be working independently according to the contract. The contract can be set for a daily basis, a weekly work goals, and this will help them develop their management skills also. Usually we keep changing the dates. We'll announce one particular date. The students will not turn up with assignment. Again, for the sake of the students, we'll extend the dates. Okay, so you have to enter into a written contract to the student. This is when you're going to submit this, and these are the qualities of your work. And if you're doing this in this particular time, you will be getting this particular reward. Otherwise, no reward. Okay. So this is initially it may be difficult, but after some time, the students will start accustomed to this process because it is comfortable for them, and they can also plan their learning with other subjects also. Then we can have learning centers in our class, school, learning centers. So that may contain all the differentiated as well as compulsory activities. So every class may be having a learning center. For example, the student may be given assignment by an English teacher every day to write copywriting one page. So that is a compulsory activity that the student will have to do every day. And that copywriting must have at least 5 new words. And these 5 new words should be explained in the classroom. If it is a verb, all the tenses related to that, okay, and how they are used in a particular sentence, and you may keep a notebook separately for that. So that is a compulsory learning activity. Even in the absence of a teacher, the students will proceed with that. When in our school, we used to have that. We had to maintain a 400-page notebook, and every day we had to write 5 English words with all the usages, the opposite, synonyms and antonyms. So every day we used to literally rake the dictionary for searching the 5 new words. And the words should be new. That should not be written earlier in our notebook or anyone else's notebook. Okay, so there was a competition in the classroom. Suppose if I'm coming with a word that was already presented by another person, my group or I will not get any marks for that. Okay, or any enrichment reward for that. So I'll be searching for new words. Likewise, all the students will be coming up with new words. And during our 3 hours or during the noon break, the students will be doing this. Okay. So this activity will go on. So likewise, we can prepare learning centers within our classroom. And initially, the teacher can guide that. Later, you can entrust that to the students. So like that, gradually, we can bring those learners who are in the fringe, okay, into the mainstream. Okay, those who are shy, those who are a bit slow, those who are not having the adequate speed can be brought to the mainstream, because now here they are working with their classmates. Okay, so that is the advantage of learning centers. Now we have anchoring